Hi, my name is Marissa Hunley, and I'm going to be doing an ethical case study presentation over the town of Dixon, Illinois. So, some backstory about Dixon is it is a town of about 15,000 people, so a pretty small community. They were so small that they actually couldn't afford to pay any full-time employees to work at their city hall. In fact, their mayor was a part-time mayor. The only person that they were able to pay full-time was Rita Crundwell. And she was the treasurer or in charge of all of the funds for the city. So a little bit more about Rita. She started working for the city back in high school as a part of one of her high school programs, and then eventually came on to work at the city full time in about 1990. So basically, this ethical case study from 1990 to about 2012, Rita was able to fraudulently embezzle about $53 million from the city. So some may ask, how in the world does that happen? Well, what she did is she started an account back in 1990 at Fifth Third Bank there in Illinois. And the account was supposed to be for reserve funds, or that's what the account name was. And then she would just write checks payable to treasurer and deposit them from the city's account or on behalf of the city into this account. So she did this over a course of 2 decades, and again embezzled around $53 million, averaging out to be about $2.5 million a year, which is just incredible. She used this fraud for her hobbies, of course. She loved quarter horses, so she bought tons of horses, trailers for the horses, lavish vehicles and homes and jewelry and just anything she wanted, she bought it. So how did she get caught? So when she went on a trip for one of her horse shows, which was frequent, she would always have someone come and cover for her. So this person would come and cover for her. She also was in charge of picking up the mail for City Hall. So she would personally go and pick it up. So when she was gone, she'd have essentially 2 people cover for her. So one person would do kind of her desk job, and then the other person would pick up all of the mail. And the person picking up the mail was either a relative or a friend. Just to kind of keep all of her secrets aligned, or a secret, if you will. So in this instance, basically the person covering for her called Fifth Third Bank, said, "Hey, I need all of the accounts. Can you send me all of the accounts?" And started going through them. And the one account that she couldn't figure out was this reserve, and she couldn't make any sense of any of the charges. So she took it straight to the mayor, who also couldn't account for where this bank account was coming from or any of the charges that were on the account, the deposits, withdraws, anything like that. So he took it to the FBI, which led to a 2-month investigation over Rita. And again, Rita was someone who everyone trusted in this town. This town is small. A handshake goes a long way. A promise is basically a legal document, or so it seemed in Dixon. So Rita ends up getting arrested, and she is spending about 19 years in federal prison, and had to surrender all of her assets to be sold off to take account for the loss the city took. So I believe our book, Business Ethics, Ethical Decision Making in Cases, does a great job at describing who was at fault for this fraud and embezzlement. So the book goes on to say that, the accountants, the auditors played a huge role in how this fraud went on for 2 decades, as well as Fifth Third Bank were huge roles in this. So basically, the accountants and auditors paid out $35.5 million, and then there was a separate firm that paid $1 million out. And then Fifth Third Bank also paid a little over $3 million in regards to this case. So the accountant during this time for the city of Dixon was Clifton Gunderson. There was a lot of conflict of interest here. So he was the auditor for the city as well as the accountant, but he was also Rita's personal accountant. And she would go play softball with their firm. She would go out and have dinner and lunch and drinks with them. So, huge conflict of interest here that was overlooked, which is just another red flag that went on for so long. Actually, in 2005, a law was instated that you actually couldn't do a non-attest and auditing from the same firm, meaning that the one firm can't do accounting as well as auditing because you're essentially just auditing your own accounting that you're helping them with, right? So this is where Clifton Gunderson involves Samuel Card, which is an accounting CPA firm, to come in and do this accounting on paper essentially and sign off on it, even though Gunderson was still doing the accounting. And so they missed so many red flags, so many invoices. So basically what Rita would do to obviously match the bank account that she opened that was fraudulent is she would obviously write out fictitious invoices to cover for them. So these invoices would say something like sewer repair or bridge repair on them. But these invoices were not always done so carefully. On some of the invoices found, one of the dates was November 31st, in which we all know is not an actual date. Sometimes the city, the stamp from the city wasn't even on these invoices, so they weren't even true or real documents, yet no one looked into them. So was that because of conflict of interest? Was that the negligence there? Or was it ignorance? Did they truly not know? Did they truly not see it? Because there are thousands of documents that they're going through. So obviously they're just going to pick, a bundle of them to go through. So did they really just not see them? Because I don't believe that. So I believe that there was a lot of negligence there. So another person who was at fault was obviously the bank, Fifth Third Bank. So when Rita went to initially open the account for the city, there should have been more than one person present, more than just Rita present in order to open this account. But it was just her, and they went ahead and opened the account. Additionally, like I said previously, these checks that she was depositing into this account were only payable to the treasurer. And they needed to be made out to the treasurer of the city of Dixon. None of these payable lines on these checks had anything to do with the city of Dixon. They were just very vague, which in a sense is very smart on Rita's part, but the bank thought nothing of it. So lack of training there, another negligence, or was it just because they trusted Rita because she was a part of the town? There's kind of a lot to be said there, as well as the suspicious transactions that were on this account. She transferred over, I believe, around $250,000 to her personal account in order to buy a quarter horse. So how was that not caught by the fraud department? And these transfers happened over 2 decades, and no one caught that. So again, huge negligence there on Fifth Third Bank. So those are kind of the 3 key players, I guess, who didn't verify anything throughout this whole scandal. So of course there were changes made within City Hall. Yes, business just did go on as usual, but they did hire a new manager to take over the financial department, and then ended up restructuring the entire department. So it was in a managing format, meaning there were more check measures. But for me, I just feel like that wasn't enough. I feel like more people were at fault that didn't take any blame. To me, I feel like the mayor should have stepped down. He did a poor job, or no job at all, of overseeing the financials of the city. The city was very poor, and a lot of things, they didn't fix bridges. They didn't have a budget because Rita was taking it all. So he did a poor job just verifying that her job was being done correctly, verifying the funds, and securing the safety and the welfare of his city that he was supposed to be the mayor of. So he did not step down. He did not go for re-election. He said that it had nothing to do with Rita's case, but ultimately I think he should have stepped down. As well, I think the city council members also are at fault here, because they would have these budget meetings and just took Rita's word for where the money was, that it was due to economic issues as well as just the state being late on payments, but there was no verification of documents or where the money was going. They just took her word. So I think the city council members should also be at fault here, and they were not. Who else do you guys think are at fault here? But those, to me, I think are the big players. To me, Gary Shapiro, who was the acting U.S. attorney at this time of this investigation, kind of summed it up and said it best. Trust if you must, but you have to verify. And that was the big thing missing in this case, was verification all throughout. And, although maybe she could have been successful, this should have been caught earlier on, not 2 decades in, and had the bank done their job at the very beginning, the account never would have been opened. So just some food for thought there. I just think, ensuring, check measures as well as the reliability of the financial reporting were key measures here. All in all, if something of this capacity could happen in such a small town, it does make me wonder, is something like this really that uncommon in bigger towns or even in other smaller towns? So just something to think about there. This case really interested me because such a small town, but yet such a huge case here with millions and millions of dollars that no one suspected, while they were living not in poverty, but living way below their means, and no one questioned it, all because of trust in a small town.